Lisa Fierstein, Labor Secretary nominee Andrew Puzder's ex-wife, appeared on an episode of The Oprah Winfrey Show in March 1990 titled Class Battered Women. Using the assumed name Ann and wearing a wig and large sunglasses to disguise herself, she appeared alongside two other women who alleged their husbands had abused them. Fierstein told the Oprah audience that her husband had vowed revenge after she disclosed abuse allegations publicly. She later retracted those allegations as part of a child custody agreement. Puzder has always denied abusing her. This is the first time details of the episode have been made public. Oprah Winfrey's company provided the tape to the Senate but declined to release it to the media. POLITICO obtained the tape from the woman who appeared on the show with Fierstein. Below is a transcript of all of Fierstein's remarks on the show. Oprah Winfrey, and came from a well-to-do family and was used to living in a classy environment with a grand home in a chichi-poo-poo neighborhood. And none of this, she says, prepared her for the vicious abuse that she experienced from her husband, who was one of the best-known attorneys in her community. Does it make it more difficult, Ann, when people don't believe you? Lisa Fierstein, absolutely. Absolutely. Of course. Nobody believes you. You can barely believe it. Who can you go to for help if the first thing they do is to look at you in disbelief? It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable to yourself? I think part of that is your own denial. You can barely believe it. You don't expect other people to believe it. And other people don't believe it. Winfrey, did you know that at least a quarter of the women who are beaten, statistics? If you can believe what statistics say because I believe so many more women are abused in the home than will ever admit it, than will ever fill out a survey. But at least the national stats say that a quarter of those women are pregnant, which is unbelievable. Fierstein, I'd like to add to something if I could. That's a question that everyone asks. Everyone says, why didn't you leave? Any woman who has not experienced that will ultimately, inevitably say, why, if a man ever hit me, I'd be right out the door. We all said it. You mentioned something about giving up your power, and that's precisely what happens. We believe, most women believe, from the time we are very young, in the ideal. And the ideal is a happy home with a loving husband and 2.5 children. And the idea and the facade and the image becomes what we put ourselves into, and we must protect that ideal at all costs. It is not a question that can be answered simply, why don't you leave? If you have invested your emotional well-being, your future, your children's future, everything into one person, and perhaps they push you, shove you, are you willing to give up everything, your hopes, your dreams, your children, everything, because he pushed you once? And when you're put in that position you say, well, perhaps he was under some stress, and he said it wouldn't happen again. And no, I can't take that risk. And it is giving up your power. Winfrey, one of the things I said to her, when she was saying the same thing all you are saying, what God has joined together. I was trying to explain to her God didn't join it together. He is hanging you out the window, and burning you with cigarettes, and tying you up, you know. God doesn't have anything to do with that. Not one thing. Fierstein, absolutely. You are hitting the nail right on the head. What I am hearing these women say, I had said at one time, if only he would change, and I keep hoping he'll change. For me, it was a real revelation one day for me to accept the fact and take responsibility for the fact that I was the one who needed to change. He was not going to change. I learned a lot. I think the word is codependency, and it is very apropos. It is absolutely where we are at. Yes, I want to clarify the fact that we did not begin and start out with a lot of money. I helped put him through school. We had worked together to create a life. In that sense, the money, you ask if it is difficult to give up these things. I wound up losing everything. Everything. I have nothing. He has a Porsche and a Mercedes-Benz. He has the home. He has everything. He was an attorney and he knew how to play the system. I was married for 14 years. But it wasn't until one day, I realized this had nothing to do with God, as you just said. This was not a relationship. This was a belief in something that didn't exist. That we want to exist, and we feel responsible for keeping it existing. And you have to let go of that. I certainly had that experience, and I did call the police. And it wound up being, just. I'm laughing about it now. And it isn't funny, it was really hideous. But, that was the most frightening thing, was leaving, because when I made that break and once I made it public, and remember my ex-husband was a public figure and everyone knew him and knew what he was doing, and once I made that public, he vowed revenge. He said, "I will see you in the gutter. This will never be over. You will pay for this." Fierstein, the focus for me, and I think for most women, we need to stop focusing on the men and what they're doing and how we can change them. We have to begin to focus on ourselves. We can't control them. It has to go back to ourselves, Fierstein, particularly when you're fighting the judicial system. And it's a very patriarchal system. These are good old boys. They hang in there together and we are up against a major problem, Fierstein. Most men who are in positions like that don't leave marks. The damage that I've sustained, you can't see. It's permanent damage. But there's no mark. And there never was. They never hit you in the face. They're too smart. They don't hit you in front of everyone. The judicial system would say that. Were there any witnesses? No, come on. They know better. Oh, better.